Now, if you guys were watching the channel yesterday, you would saw that I dropped a video talking about U of I Dave and talking about a chat message that was in my chat room on a live stream talking about an exclusive deal with the Drunk Turkeys and Lana. Now, I'm a type of man that wants to bring you honesty and truth, and I like to correct myself when something has been proven to me to be wrong. As I said earlier in another video that I recorded for today, Daniel from the Drunk Turkeys reached out and proved to me that that is not the situation. And I feel like if I can cast any sort of true light on that situation for you guys, I'm going to do it. So I invited Daniel on to talk to me today, and I'm going to present that discussion here with you. I want to say thank you to everybody watching this, but this is being done for transparency in the community. I know a lot of you still believe that Dave could be a problem, that Dave could be a fraud. I'm telling you right now, even if that's the case, I'll tell you who isn't a fraud. That's Daniel from the Drunk Turkeys. And I want to present this to you, and I'll let you judge for yourself. But from me, I believe him completely, and I've seen the evidence. I'll let you take that how it is. I'm JB Gunner. This is Crime Time. Let's do it.
Bring it back.
What's going on, everybody? As you guys know, I'm JB Gunner, and this is Crime Time. Before we get things started with this entire interview, I want to say first and foremost, thank you to everybody that supports the channel, regardless of the method you choose, whether it be Cash App, Patreon, Venmo, PayPal. Hell, you don't even have to support this channel. It could be one of my other ones. I want to say I couldn't do this each and every day as often as I do without you, the Gun Squad. So big shout out to you. With that being said, if you too find my content valuable, feel free to hit the links down below. Show your boys some love. Join the Gun Squad today. As often as YouTube takes me down, you guys are what keeps this thing working. Plus, you can check out some of my other channels if you're not a snowflake and you get into politics. I mean, you probably shouldn't go there if you lean, limp. If you kind of want to limp-wrist the types. I'm just saying, you probably should stay over here with the true crime. But anyway, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and present to you an interview that I did with Daniel from the Drunk Turkeys. All right, so you guys, I'm sitting here with Daniel from the Drunk Turkeys, and before I get started talking to him, I want to say that yesterday, much like anybody in this community that speculates, I did some speculation when I saw something in my chat room. Daniel reached out to me publicly, and I believe him because he's always been a solid dude, and so I want to give him the chance to clear it up, because if I'm going to make accusations or even hint at something, even though I gave him a lot of props throughout that, I want to bring to you the truth and correct an error. Daniel, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, JB. I appreciate it. I watch you, as much as I oftenly can.
Right.
And I your video caught my attention. I sent you, I reached out to you and I sent you some screenshots. It's kind of just show, it wasn't what that guy, whoever that guy was saying.
Yeah.
Long story short, Dave came to me on Monday of last week, after we had a conversation with Kim on the air. He had noticed a few things, and especially the timeline in which and when things would occur, and how he knew things and felt that he wanted to come forward and say that was accurate. Right. He reached out to me Monday. I had an interview with him on Tuesday. I didn't come out with his story or talk about it until Friday night, and then Saturday morning is when I came out with it. And the reason why it took so long, because I had to make sure he was who he was, similar to like Kim or anybody else that has come on our show. It's not a next day thing. I vet who they are, make sure that they are telling me who they are. And it's also, as far as any type of exclusive deal, just like Kim, who's come out on many shows, Dave is more than happy to come on any show he wants. He just personally wants to step back. He was to the point where he didn't even want to come out on our show on Monday night. And that's kind of what
the TNT show was pretty intense, so I could see why he'd want to step back a little bit.
Yeah, he wanted to step back. He told me, hey, I really don't even want to go down the whole drugs thing. So a lot of people were asking me like, hey, why didn't you ask him a lot of questions about the drugs? Me and him had a conversation prior to. He doesn't want to go down that road. You yourself says that you've had experience on the opposite side of the law that I have.
Right.
Can somebody be touched from prison just because especially somebody that's been connected with drugs?
100%.
Yeah. And so 100%. this guy is aware of that. I've had that conversation with him. I was like, look, just because somebody's in jail doesn't mean that they can't touch you, and doesn't mean they can't have somebody else do the same. And so I thought it was imperative and important that he maintained,
Right.
especially based on the stuff that he was saying, hit his face and hit his voice. And so, I don't want anything to happen to this young man because he came forward to us.
Absolutely. You understand that kind of like when the Justin thing happened, a lot of us began to look at everybody suspiciously, like Kim, and because the Justin thing was a debacle. You know what I'm saying? Like that was insane. So of course, when we hear, and then Kim was a lot of theory, a lot of, and I can respect that. So then this guy comes, and even though remember, I'm kind of the guy that believes there's something going on here. So his story, like the 9 a.m. stuff, all of that it sounded good. I want to believe it. You know what I mean? And so when that happened, it was just one of those situations where when I thought, I've been doing this for 16 years. I know how trolls are. I know how that is. But so when I saw it, I questioned it for a second. Then other people got in my ear and I said, you know what? Maybe that does sound kind of goofy, right? And so it was more of me judging him, not you and TNT. It was a situation where maybe this guy's credibility wasn't credible because he's just out looking for a payday. But for the record, you don't pay these people, correct? Or make deals or anything like that.
Correct. There's only one person that I've ever paid to come on a show, and he was an actor. And so we do other things in true crime. And his name is Danny De La Paz. He is the actor in he's Chuco in Boulevard Nights, American Me. He's Big Puppet. And so, he said that in order to come on our show, we'd have to give a $100 donation to Homeboys Industries, which is a organization that assists ex-felons when they're coming out of prison to have a better life. And so, we donated to that cause, and he ended up coming out on the show, which we told everybody, like, hey, we did donate to his cause, and he threw out his cause out there so that way more donations can go there. When it came to Dave, no, we've never paid anybody to come on our show. It's a witness or a person of interest or anything.
Right.
It's not our deal, our bag.
And for the record, I wouldn't have been. That wasn't what I was criticizing because I'm a capitalist, bro. If that's what it takes to get the truth out, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I even heard like back when Enon Horsch and shit was charging people, like he was charging people to come on the show, and I don't know if that. I don't think that's what occurred with anybody else. I ain't casting aspersions,
right.
But so what I am saying is I remember him saying it would cost $500 to get him on the show. So logically, you begin to connect the dots. I'm like, a lot of these people are trying to grift off the Idaho 4. Not you as the content creator. You put in a lot of work. But I feel like some of these people that are popping out of the woodwork. And so logically, my spidey sense went off. And I'm like, oh, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, no, 100%. I totally get it. And I don't have any problems with people questioning the validity of his story or things of that nature. I understand that it comes off as one that is slightly, maybe unbelievable. The fact that people were aware of something at 9:30 a.m. and yet police weren't called. Well, to make it even more unbelievable, somebody was aware at 4:20 a.m. and the police still weren't called. And so, I get it, and even when it came to Kim's story, I told everybody, take it with a grain of salt. This is a person who is highly invested in the area and has gone through a multitude channels, multitude of websites, things of that nature, and has her own opinions and has her own speculation. But two things can be right at the same time. She can speculate, have her opinion, and have all these things, and also be told something from her daughter. And so, on the same case goes here. This man can, he has firsthand knowledge of a lot of things. He personally knows some of the people that were involved in this situation. He personally knows some of the people that were involved in the Caden Young situation. Right. And so, with all that being said, he hasn't tried to put any rumors or things or thoughts like that out there. We personally didn't ask him outside of, what was the rumor around town? Did you ever hear of, this being possibly drug related or anything? And outside of, his own personal experience with that house and the possibility of drugs going in and out of there, he's not aware of this being that case. When I asked him if, Demetrius Robinson or Emma Bailey could have done this, his thought initially was not personally, not themselves. Demetrius seemed like, he had a rap sheet for things that happened in the moment.
Right.
But when it came to like the kind of person he was flashy, exuberant, wore dress shoes, rings and things of that nature. He's like, I don't see him doing it like that. He did
Right.
have a lot of money, maybe perhaps, something else
Right.
could have happened, but that's just 100% speculation on his part, on my part.
Yeah.
And something that I really don't want to put out there because there's a lot of people who confuse opinion and rumor with, vetted facts. And that's not
Right.
the case. A lot of people hear Kim say something to the effect like, um, an organ was missing. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
where did you hear that? Where did you get that?
Right.
And I'd heard and seen that like on Reddit and things of that nature. And she's like, oh, I heard it this way or that way. Or even, for instance, I know that it was a question that you had brought up was the Black Lives Matter flag that was out there that she brought up. I asked her, what was that about? And she's like, well,
Right.
somebody had said that they had seen a Black Lives Matter flag at the football game. I was like, were you at the football game? She's like, no. I was like, did you personally see the flag? She's like, no. So that's just something that you heard through the air. That's not something. Was that something that your daughter told you? No.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, people are confusing that based on you actually, because you brought it out there and said that in just your train of thought. People are
Right.
confusing that with actual fact, and that's not the case.
No, I understand. Everybody's speculating, and then we get these people. They have their speculation. They're entitled to it, just like you and me are. So Kim's entitled to her speculation. All these people are. But I do want to say that I appreciate you clearing this up, and I personally extend an apology to you if you think it casted your channel any aspersions on you guys. It was more about him at the time. I tried to continuously say that I would not. I didn't think you would necessarily do anything like that, but himself, I question people's, I follow the money, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's just how I've always done it. I believe that it's almost the answer to everything. This case itself is going to be either rage, women, or money. It's the way I see it. I don't think it's just going to be some random psychopath stalking a house that has parties with 150 people that decided, hey, I'm going to try to go into this house and hope there's not 100 people here. You know what I mean? To me, it's just a little bit. So I don't know. I follow the money, bro.
No, I agree 100%, and that's one of the things that I tell a lot of folks here, that people that have come to my channel and things of that nature. I'm like, yo, it is believed that this was a single person that committed this crime with a knife. That sounds very personal. Extremely personal, and so I don't know if it's just like a random guy. And then you throw in the factor that this was a party house, you throw in the factor that there's possibly drugs going in and out. If somebody was trying to commit the perfect crime and they were looking for the perfect victim, somebody that had a lot of people inside of their house, maybe had some shady business deals going on, they would have a lot of suspects to be looking at. You also have one of the persons there that had it was recently through a breakup, and so the police would have a lot of avenues to go down, and maybe perhaps that's one of the reasons why he selected this house was because of all those things, and who knows? The only person that really knows right now is the alleged person, if that's Brian Koberger, which, I'm on the fence about. To me, it comes down to what's in the Elantra. If they find any DNA in that Elantra from one of the victims, then he's done his sin. He's good as gone. Put him in jail and throw away the keys.
I never thought about that fact that we do come from two different sides of this. So I'm very much so an innocent until proven guilty guy. I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in that. Where I assume you would probably be pro law. I'm not saying the law enforcement isn't pro Constitution, but I would assume like are you more liable? Are you more likely to believe the affidavits and everything the courts are saying, or are you skeptical on this as well?
Initially, when the first stuff comes out, I tend to go along and side with the law enforcement side of it. But as things come out, I'm very open to change my mind. And I follow the evidence. If there's evidence that proves in one direction or not, then that's where I follow. So I'm very evidentiary based. And when it comes to this case, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make any sense. The direction of travel that Koberger was happening to come into. And even when he was seen, by the gas station, that's coming from east to west when he was in Pullman supposed to be coming west to east. You have the time, the phone pings, he's pinged at his house at 2:45, but at 2:47, he's seen on Nevada Street 2 miles away. And so he would have had to have traveled 60 miles an hour uninterrupted to have gotten there. You look at the fact that the phone pings, even in the probable cause affidavit, it speaks about that he connected to a tower in Idaho and wasn't there on that day on the 14th. You talk about the fact that he turns his phone off. Well, the probable cause affidavit shows the following day he did something very similar. Without coordinating that evidence with anything like finding a weapon, finding clothes, finding something that puts him in that area, all it does to me is show a pattern, and a pattern that he goes on drives and turns his phone off. So I think that's more in favor of him than it is the prosecution. And so, you look at the fact that the search warrant in his apartment complex revealed nothing. When it comes to the blood on his bed, I'm fairly positive that that's possibly bloody nose. And the reason being is if he was that bloody and full of blood, why isn't there blood on the carpet leading up to the bed, on the mattress, on the sheet? It's just on the mattress cover. And
remember the image we saw of him when he came to court? Remember, hey, it looked like he had cut himself shaving? Maybe he does that shit on a regular. Maybe he's just bad at shaving. You know what I mean?
That's quite possible. That is quite possible. And so when it comes to Kohberger, like I said, there's a lot of information. I don't like coincidences in any aspect. And then you have the prosecutor or the defense trying to subpoena Bethany Funk for explanatory evidence, and then you also have the following day, them asking for requests for more discovery, and then also the Giglio thing comes up. I don't like the timing and all that shit. And so to me, that all kind of brings up the possibility of something nefarious occurring here.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't know. I don't think that, like, for instance, if there was IDs in a glove inside of a box inside of his house in Pennsylvania, I don't believe that there's a multi-agency, cross-country agency, coup
conspiracy
going on right now. Yeah. So if those things were found, those, I think that's another, a situation that could prove or show some guilt there. I find it difficult as to when he would have gotten those cards. In my opinion, he must have broken ahead of time, to go in there that night and scrummage through things while he's.
But they also said it was an ID related to someone in the house. They didn't say. I mean, I know Banfield tried to say it is a victim's, but the initial report was it's an ID connected to someone in the house. I do agree with you. I don't think the FBI and Idaho police are colluding on some grand conspiracy. I don't think that at all. Hell, Pennsylvania apparently didn't even have a body cam of the arrest, which I think is insane. But no, so I don't think it's a grand conspiracy. Anything they found in Pennsylvania that may lead him to, that's what's going to get him. To me, go ahead. You agree?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Anything that's outside of that little town. I understand that corruption does exist within the police departments, and especially the smaller the police, the less checks and balance that there are. And this department in Moscow is not very big. And we've already seen stories where, they hid body cam footage from a arrest that they had when they were talking to one juvenile, one brother, and referencing stickers. And so if they're willing to do that for stickers, what are they willing to do for a much larger case? And so there's a lot of stuff I don't like about this case with the police. And
especially when your entire economy is based on the college.
Right. 100%. And the one thing that I don't understand is when it comes to Dave's account. So Dave says that he's familiar with the three individuals that got an MIP that night in the Banfield. They, nor him, nor his fraternity were ever questioned in any kind of canvas. They didn't check out anything. And if you go and look at all the police reports that they put out there, they're talking about they squared off a certain area, and that road right there just south of that field is the northern boundary. So they weren't looking at anything further north than that. And this is where, the Sigma Chi fraternity is at, and other fraternities, including the one that Dave is associated with. And his fraternity was never questioned. They never went into their back area where they have their dumpsters to go check those things. And they never went back, from my understanding, to go talk to those three individuals who one claims that he may have seen somebody that sort of resembled Kohberger the next morning around between 9 and 9:30.
Yeah, so, that was what freaks me out. Because let's say Kohberger did it. That sounds really crazy that he's just going to go wandering around that field. And now him maybe driving by makes sense. But to me, that seems risky that's risky as fuck. And I hear people talk about, well, maybe he thought he dropped the knife sheath there. No, because remember, the affidavit says he had parked up on the hill, whoever had done it with Kohberger. They claim to have footage of him trying to park, and you know what I'm saying? I don't understand what he would have been doing there necessarily. But so that one seems like just a rumor, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, yeah, the only thing is it came to Dave directly from the guy that claims to have seen the guy out there.
Right.
Now, that area where the band field is and that area where those fraternities are is the only area where you can expect a lot of numerous people to park and walk, because that's a walking area as well.
Yeah.
Out there on Willenta Drive or on King Road or Queen Road, anybody that's back in those areas are people that live there. So parking in front of that Banfield field, you have a lot of joggers, walkers, random people that are not from that area that are traveling to that area to walk in that specific area among many others. And so, you'd want to blend in. You don't want to be parked in a situation or an area where nobody, you're not supposed to be at. Out there, white Elantra 2015, it's a common vehicle. This guy looks like a common guy. He doesn't stand out except for the fact that apparently he has bushy eyebrows and a cold stare, which seems to get him everywhere. You know what I mean?
Maybe he needs to start wearing sunglasses. We do in the house, so he might have to start doing it. No, I'm with you, brother. I'm with you on all that. So let me add just real quick. If this case went to trial today and there's no fuckery, with the evidence presented so far, Kohberger guilty or not?
Today, with the evidence, I'd say no. I wouldn't put a man, to death based on the evidence they have. And I'm going to agree with you on a lot of things as far as, like, for instance, the probable cause affidavit. A lot of people think that, the police department has so much more, and that's not true at all.
Right.
You're trying to, the attempt there is to take this man's freedom away. That requires significant evidence, and you're going to put in there the strongest evidence that you have. Now, what's not going to be in there are the things that were found after the fact. Now, to me, it appears that law enforcement is banking on a couple of things, that they were banking on finding a tremendous amount of evidence after the fact, whether it would be digital or DNA in the car or in the house or his phone, maps, things of that nature. And so, one thing that I can't get around is this guy went to school or work the following Monday, and nobody ever mentioned anything about him being cut up or in an altercation. He had a doctor's appointment. Nobody mentioned that. He maintained his barber's appointment as well later on that month. And so, all these things happened, and yet nobody comes forward. Everybody comes forward about his behavior and things of that nature. Oh, he changed. And this is one thing that the defense is going to bring up. November 12th is when they gave him a plan of action as far as, how to change whatever it was that he was doing at school that was getting him in trouble for being that, from that teacher's assistant's position. If it was that he was grading too tough and that information said, hey, you're grading too tough on November 12th, well, that following weekend or Monday, he's going to start grading easier. It just so happened to be right after the situation. So those two may not even correlate.
100%. Another thing is everybody brought up the fact that he changed his plates. His plates expired on his birthday. From what I understand, his plates expired. And everybody was like, well, he looks like he's not coming back to Idaho. He changed his plates to Idaho plates, from what I understand, from Pennsylvania plates. So in my opinion, he wasn't changing his plates to cover anything up. They were literally expired. Because if you saw the body cam footage when he got pulled over by the chick, you hear her talking about Kohberger date of expiration on his plates was literally that November, and that pullover was in October, right?
Yeah, 100%. I saw that as well, and you're right. If he was planning on going back to Pennsylvania and that was his goal, then he wouldn't have changed his plates. And so, like I said, the one thing, there's the few things that kind of tie me up on Kohberger is the fact that he had his phone off during and around the commission of the crime. He turned it off. He was in Pullman. When it turned back on, he was south of Moscow in the direction in which they feel that the vehicle traveled towards after they exited the house. And so, that aspect of it, the DNA on the knife sheath, the biggest concern for me is the amount of DNA that they had. It very much sounds like it was a very small, minute amount, which is going to be more, the way they collected it. And if somebody saw the sheath, somebody didn't see the sheath, all that other stuff that a lot of people are bringing up, really don't hold as much value as the quantity of the and the quality of the DNA. If it's, from what I understand from the Howard Bloom article, it was like 20 cells, which you could fit. Yeah, you could fit on a pin of a needle and still have room. And so,
and from your experience, in a situation where it's a physical, it takes a lot of physical endurance to murder four people. If you take watermelons and go try stabbing them, and then run up a stairs, come back in, including a very big person in terms of Ethan Chapin. Wouldn't logic say there would probably be more DNA than just the blood? Like,
yeah,
there would have to be.
That's one thing that does, bother me about this situation, is that the only DNA that they were able to find was on the sheath. Now, perhaps maybe they found more DNA, maybe they found sweat droplets on the stairs or things of that nature, but those things can be argued that they had 150 people inside of that house the night before, at a big party. And so the DNA on the sheath itself is, I guess they're assuming that sheath was brought in from outside of that residence and
by the killer. And so DNA on that is probably more important than any sweat droplets or blood droplets that he may have had that have gone. Or it wouldn't, if there was a blood droplet in that house that was his, I think that would be on the probable cause affidavit. But if they found some sort of touch DNA on the walls or sweat on the walls or things of that nature, all he has to literally say is that he's been in that house before at one of these parties, regardless if anybody else has seen him or not. Is it a fair? Yeah, I agree. Is it a fair statement to do that kind of brutal stabbing? You would have to be precise to not cut yourself at all. Is that a fair statement? I mean, to do that with four different people, to not even accidentally, especially they say Xana grabbed the knife. You're telling me at no point in time did he accidentally cut himself? To me, that's an extreme precision. That seems like it would be from someone that has done this before. And if you look back at his old boss said he was horrible at carving shit up. You know what I mean? So like, I don't know. It's just kind of a feeling I've had. I just don't see how he couldn't have cut himself. But no one said he cut himself. Like there was no students that said, yeah, no, he's in here with his hands cut up. I don't know, man. What are your thoughts on that? The likelihood of him not cutting himself?
I've seen the likelihood of him not cutting himself, is difficult, especially with the amount of victims that are here. You would assume that those things would have happened. More unlikely than that, though, is the fact that, and if you can go and look at people who have committed this a crime similar with a knife, go look at their face, go look at their necks. They're cut up, they're tore up from somebody fighting for their life. Mm-hmm. The fact that that's not in there, there's not DNA underneath the fingernails. See, to me, if there was DNA under the fingernails, that's what you would want to try to attack, the killer too, not so much DNA on the sheath. DNA under the fingernails says that, this person scratched them at the last moment of their life. If it's still underneath there, that closed case
if that's the situation, right?
Exactly. And that's not, there. Now, is it possible he was wearing some sort of suit, like a wetsuit? I brought up a wetsuit one time. I was like, it's cold out there. Maybe a wetsuit, to keep the sweat from dropping down. But, him to not drip blood outside of the house with something that's described as much as it was, and especially if he did take blood evidence back to his home and yet he didn't leave any outside of the house, that doesn't make any sense.
Think about it. Wouldn't he have been carrying the dripping ass knife? Because remember, the sheep was left. Like, right. To me, what he do? He had it in so at some point he would have had to sit the knife down somewhere in the cars. I don't know. Just to me, it seems crazy that he walked out with a dripping knife. You just slaughtered four people and there's no blood anywhere. Like, but we don't know. Maybe there is, you know what I mean? Maybe there is blood in the path to the car, but it just seems unlikely, man. And then the car has to be the golden ticket. I don't believe that he could be in that car after killing four people and not transfer some DNA into that. I find it impossible.
I do too. The only thing that I can think of, and even at that, I think that it's still impossible to not transfer blood into the car. Right. I say some fucked up shit, y'all. Like I called Kim Pam for a long ass time. It just happens, I say the wrong words. It just happens.
It's live television. It's live. Fuck it.
Yeah, so it happens. But to transfer, have that amount of blood on you and not transfer it in is odd. The only thing that I can possibly think of that kind of correlates with some of the evidence or some of the rumors that have been stated is maybe he put his shower curtain in the trunk of his car, and he used that to line his trunk, and maybe he did run out naked after taking off all his clothes, and placed all those
Hey,
things in a shower curtain and then sealed it up that way and had a pair of, something quickly to jump into to get out of there. But
that would make sense.
yeah, that
That
still
would
doesn't,
make sense. Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
that's the only thing that I can think of as a way of doing it. But even at that, that's not going to get the blood off his face,
Right,
off his hair and things like that. So his
right.
headrest is, even his shoes. I mean, unless he had, like I said, the only thing that makes sense to me, but he'd have to open his trunk somehow. So grabbing that trunk lid, opening it up,
Eh.
I still find it impossible for there not to be any blood in that car if he did commit this crime.
And your average person that's not in law enforcement, like we wouldn't know. I mean, we would try to conceal everything. But how many times have you arrested someone or known someone that arrested someone that thought they had committed the perfect crime, thought they had concealed everything, but you guys just knew where to look and you guys knew the little nooks and crannies to where to, you see what I'm saying? Like people committing crimes usually, when they try to cover it up, still make a shitload of mistakes. To me, for that car to be such a major part of this, even with his education, I find it impossible that he took the time and had the ability to find everything. Especially when in today's world, DNA is found years later. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy to me, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, so in my law enforcement career, I was just a beat officer. I never made detective or anything like that. So I've gone to murder cases and seen them. Wasn't a part of their investigation on the back end part of it. But every case that I'm aware of, there's only like a handful that weren't solved that I can think of off the top of my head. And the reason why they weren't solved, it wasn't so much that they weren't solved. It's people, the officers knew who did it. They just didn't have the evidence to prove it. You know what I mean? There's a big difference between what you know and what you can prove. And so
They say less than 50% of murders in America get solved.
right.
That's a crazy number.
I agree that's plausible. And a lot of reasons too is, people don't come forward. A lot of people are complaining about, Dave or Kim or this or that. Like, oh, why isn't he saying more or this or that? I'm like, yo, do you know how hard it is to get people to come forward with any information? It's not like when a crime occurs, there's like a people lined up outside the police station waiting to tell their story. It's quite the opposite.
Right.
There's many a times where, there's a knock and talk or a canvas that goes on in a neighborhood and you're trying to gather information and people who, know something, would have seen something or heard something and out of fear or whatever the case may be. No, I didn't hear or see anything. And
Right.
you can see it in their face, they're lying to you. But what can you do as that aspect but take their word until you find evidence or proof that they do know something more? And even at that, going after a witness and charging them for knowing something and not coming forward isn't going to help you when you want other witnesses to come forward. You get what I'm saying? And so,
yeah. So if I lived in Idaho, if I lived in Moscow, because there's still always the possibility that the murderer is not in jail. You know what I mean? So if I understand like those people wanting to, because if I'm them, for me to let my identity out and talk about it, I would have to be damn sure Koberger is the guy. Does that make sense? Like, so like, because if he's not the guy, there is still a dude that slaughtered 4 people running around there. I'm sure he's left by now, but you get the point. Like,
right, 100%. You still have that possibility. You also have the possibility that, let's just say that this was somehow connected to drugs. Koberger was an ex-heroin addict. That's been well documented that he had his addictions with drugs. People with drugs know people, and connections don't stop once somebody goes to jail. In fact, there are a lot of people who have had connections or hits started while somebody is in jail and it gets to somebody outside. And so, and then that's kind of the reason why when I talked to Dave, I also told him, I was like, man, let's, the information that you're giving me is big. At the same time, it's not anything that nobody really doesn't know. I'm fairly positive the police are aware that Emma Bailey and Demetrius Robinson are guys that were dealing in that town. I'm sure that the police have the phone records of the victims and know around what time calls and text messages started going out there, things of that nature. It's not been a secret that there was a crowd out there when the police arrived. One thing I tell people is like, how did that crowd know? not all of them are clairvoyant spirit box talkers or tarot card readers. I'm
Right.
fairly positive that, I know a lot of people believe that instead of, the plausible explanation that somebody told them that something happened and that's why they were out there.
No, that's my favorite quote of the whole interview with you. That one. Yeah, I'm not big on. But this case is super fucked up. A lot of things going on, and Daniel, once again, I want to apologize to you if you believe I casted aspersions on you or your channel. That was never the case. That was never the intentions. It was just me following the lead, trying to get truth just like you do. And once you gave me the truth, I wanted to correct it and give them the truth. You know what I mean? That's the whole reason for this, brother. And I hope I did that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You did. I appreciate you coming, allowing me to come on and kind of clear the air as well. The other thing I want to say is because I keep getting this in my inbox, Dave is not Enan Harsh. Dave is not somebody.
I have always hated the Enan Harsh theories. Enan Harsh is just a hippie, man. He's just a dude over there doing what he did. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Enan has I don't know Enan Harsh, but from what I understand, he has no problems putting his face out there and talking, and saying the things that he says. Believe it or not, there's more than 20 people that live in the city of Moscow. There's more than 20 people that have fraternities. And this is a person that has not come out on anything other than truth and transparency. And the only reason he found us was because of the coverage that Lena was having on Demetrius Robinson and Caden Young and Emma Bailey. And then he was able to find my channel and just so happened, and that's what he says in the email, I just so happened to find what you're talking with Kim. He had no idea who Kim was prior to Monday or any of these things. He's not a true crimer. In fact, he was kind of nervous and worried about his inner circle finding out that he came forward and said some of the things that he said about the fraternities and, the drug use and things of that nature. And I was like, look, man, my demographic is 80% women over the age of 30. I think you're safe. I
have the same demographic because let's be honest, it's usually women that follow these cases. I mean, men do too, but you get the point. My demographic is about the same, 30 to 65, I would say, female. And then, like I said, mine's about 70% female. Yours is a little bit higher, so they must like you a little bit.
Yeah, hopefully.
Exactly.
And so, I think they like Big Blue. And that's kind of what I told them. I was like, yeah, man, the only thing you'd worried about is maybe having a couple cougars coming after you. But they all love Big Blue. And so you have some competition. And that kind of eased him down a little bit because, like I said, he was ready to kind of not do the show on Monday after talking with Lena and stuff. So this guy's not looking for clout. He's not looking to jump on a bunch of different channels and do things like that. He has every right to. We've, just like I've done with Kim, like I've never told Kim, hey, you should go on this channel or you shouldn't go on this channel. Even after, she went on a certain channel and they, were talking smack about her and she decided to go back on there. Even after that, I didn't tell her, hey, I think you should not go back on that channel. Or you should, these people are grown ass people. They make their own choices and their own decisions. I respect their.
It caught me completely off guard when I got to the chat and I put it up there because I never reached out to him. I didn't even know. I mean, I know of the dude. You see what I'm saying? But it's not like I was like, hey, bro, will you come on my show? I don't even do live streams typically. Yeah. That was the first live stream I had done in 2 months. I do my politics live stream on my other channel. Like this is kind of my little side toy. You know what I mean? But. So so it caught me off guard, and I'm like, well, and he's like, well, I can't come on your show. I was like, I didn't fucking ask you to, but so I should have took that from minute one, and thought a little bit more. But it was the heat of the moment, and then I had everybody else in my ear, and did you see this? Did you see that? What about this? And I'm like, I didn't think about it, and I started thinking about it, and but I'm glad you reached out, and I'm glad we can clear the air. I've been wanting to talk to you anyway, all the way back since way back. You know me, and you've been, and I appreciate your work, and I'm glad. Hopefully, I can clear this up for the audience. Hopefully, you know what I mean, and hopefully, I did it to your satisfaction.
Yes, sir, you did. I just want to add one thing. When I said earlier, that's not our deal or my bag. That's just a phrase that I use. Don't take those that are watching that. They're like, oh, he said that's not my deal or bag. Must have had a deal. No, that's just a phrase. I already know how some of the folks in the true crime community will hang on every single word you say. And even if you say something out of mishaps, they'll hang on that word and jump all over your back for it. So
100%. They literally said to me that I paid someone to come in my chat room and write that. So I'm like, yeah, I'm like, but anyway, man, it's been a good deal. Oh, I said deal. No, we do not have a deal. He's not. So which one of us is paying who? Exactly.
I'm not getting paid enough, I'll tell you that.
Exactly, brother. I'm glad you took the time to, because it's real early in the morning. We're doing this. We've been doing this since like 8 o'clock, and then so we try to get this out as soon as we could for him. Thank you for taking the time this early in the morning, bro. I know. I appreciate you, man. Any final statements?
No, man, just I appreciate what you do. You know, me and my wife watch your channel. She thinks a lot of the stuff you say is hilarious. You know, she sends some of the things you say to her friend. Like, so her friend lives in Austin, and the limp wrist comment you made her laugh so freaking hard, dude. Like, it was hilarious. You know, and nothing against anybody. Like, you know, her best friend is somebody that is in a same-sex marriage, and so it's not like it's, you know, anything against anybody, but
it's not hateful, man. It's just jokes.
Exactly, man. We're you know, a lot of people look at our channel and think that we're 100% serious all the time. I mean, go look at our intro, and that'll tell you we are not that serious. Now, when it comes to certain cases and certain things that we talk about, obviously, yeah, but you know, our channel as well wasn't meant to be a true crime channel. We talk about aliens, we talk about UFOs, Bigfoot, things of that nature, conspiracy.
That's good shit.
Yeah, and you know, it just so happened that, you know, we had one of our viewers say, "Hey, why don't you guys, you know, talk about Richard Allen?" This is when the Delphi case was happening, and Richard Allen got arrested. And so we covered that a little bit, and people were like, "Well, hey, we like what you're doing, you know, continue the true crime aspect," and that's kind of became our niche, so to speak. But, you know, at the same time, we're not trying to solve any cases. We don't consider ourselves sleuths. We're just commentators, and people want to come to us that, you know, have their opinions or maybe have an insight to certain things that we find to be important or whatnot. We're going to put it out there.
You know, you're the only other person in this community I've ever heard say that. And because that's what I say. Look, I was doing politics and news for the last 16 years. I just happened to start with like Debbie Collier in that case. And then my old channels got shut down. And so I started a new one, which is when I started Crime Time. I said, I'll just put on my true crime, like that kind of stuff. The Debbie Collier, the Quentin Simon. And then, of course, Idaho happened. And it happened the same month that I started the channel. So like, right there, it just happened it happened that way. But I tell them the same thing. I'm not a detective. I'm just a commentator. Don't listen to me. I'm not trying to solve the case. To me, this is a big game of Clue. It really is. It's don't get me wrong. I want justice to be served. I'm very pro law enforcement. I definitely don't want murderers running around America. You know what I'm saying? Right. But so if that makes sense, but to me, I look at these cases as just the same way I would look at any other news story. I'm just presenting commentary, giving my opinion. I'm no expert. I'm just a fat motherfucker on TV giving you my opinion. That's the way I honestly feel it. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be drunk half the time too. So good.
Us too, man. We like to enjoy our adult beverages and other things as well, just to kind of go in a little bit more relaxed and not so no serious. You know, it's one of the things I tell the guys on the show. I was like, yo, man, people are gonna talk shit. People are gonna say this, that, and a third, and people aren't going to always agree with us, but we don't do this for them per se. We do this for, you know, just to get the information out there that is pertinent, and also for us, you know, when it comes to like the UFO case, that stuff, we enjoy that. You know, we'll do a beer tasting type of, you know, a podcast where we get really fucked up, and we talk about all sorts of random shit. And so
I do the same thing on my other channels. I do the exact same thing, where it could be anything from Waco to Roswell to same shit, man. I get you.
So, but I appreciate it, JB. Thank you so much for having us on, or having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother, man. It was good talking to you, man. I'll get this uploaded as soon as possible. It's been real, man. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You have a good one.
All right. You too.